Anger. Everybody deals with anger. Did you know that God gets angry? Psalm 7:11 says that He is angry at the wicked every day. So, God gets angry. Did you know that Jesus got angry? Do you remember the story about when He drove the money changers out of the temple? He turned over tables. He was definitely angry. So if that's the case, if God gets angry and Jesus gets angry, then being angry is not a sin. The Apostle Paul tells us in Ephesians 4:26, "Be angry and sin not." So it's apparently possible to be angry, but to do it in a way that it doesn't cause us to sin. So it is possible to be angry and not sin, but listen, it is very, very difficult. So that's why Paul goes on in Ephesians and Colossians to tell us to put anger far away from us. So in other words, try and put as much distance between yourself and anger as you possibly can. So the problem is not anger. The problem is the root of anger. Now, I'm about to give you a theory, and I would encourage you to write this down and really listen and understand this theory. It's probably one of the most powerful theories that has impacted my life. It's a theory about anger, and it says this: the root of anger is a blocked goal. Now, I can remember the first time I heard that, my first thought was, that can't be. Anger is too big of a problem to put into that small of a box. But I can tell you that after a good 17 years of applying it, this is a principle that is true every single time. The root of anger is a blocked goal. So now let me break down the concept of a blocked goal. Let's say that I think things should go this way. This is the way I think they should go. But they're going this way. And the fact that they're not going the way that I think they should be going, you could say that my goal is being blocked. And when that happens, it stirs up this emotion inside of me that we call anger. Now, that theory has a second part. The second part is whoever or whatever blocked my goal is the target of my anger. Now, you think about this and you'll see how accurate it is. Every time you get upset, the person or the thing that blocked your goal or the way that you think things should be going is the person that your anger is directed at. So let me give you a silly little story, an example that explains this. Let's say that I have a brand new office and I'm going to paint my walls. And I'm looking through a magazine and I happen to see a picture of an executive that just has the appearance that I would like to have. And he happens to have cobalt blue walls in his office. And I'm thinking, wow, I really want people to see me that way. I want to come across like that executive. So I'm going to paint my walls cobalt blue. It's silly, but it's important to me. So just as I make that decision, let's say that my wife walks in the room. And she says, oh, you're going to paint your office. You should paint the walls red. Well, the fact that I already feel like she's too controlling and pushes her way on me causes my goal to get blocked really quick. I'm thinking already, I'm not going to have the blue walls that I want. I'm gonna. Before you know it, she's going to convince me to paint these walls red. So my goal is blocked. Immediately, I get angry. So the way society had taught me to handle a situation like that was to suppress the other person's opinion so that mine would win. And my way of handling things back then was sarcasm. So the way I would handle that situation is I would say something to her like, "Red? Are you serious? Where did you get your design skills from? A third grader?" And of course, if you had been sitting in the room when I said that, oh, she would be furious. As a matter of fact, when you left the room later, she would look at me and she would say, "How dare you talk to me like that in front of people?" Well, now she's angry. Guess what her blocked goal is? She would like to appear to be an intelligent person to you. But now I've just blocked that goal by making her sound like an idiot. So now she's upset with me. So now we're arguing back and forth. I'm saying, look, you're a control freak. You come in here and you tell me what to do. I wanted a blue office and you're saying it's going to have to be red. And then she starts arguing back. But listen, you didn't have to handle it the way that you handle it. And we start this whole new argument that spins out of control. And now we're arguing a distracted argument over here and not even addressing the real root of the problem. Can you see how handling a situation the wrong way diverts your attention from the real issue that needs to be addressed? So that is an argument that we could keep spinning out here for days and possibly weeks. We were world heavyweight champion fighters verbally. We could keep something like that going forever. And that was the enemy's plan, just to keep us at each other's throats. So, again, you can see the idea there, how my goal was blocked and how I handled it wrong. What about this example? Let's say that you're in traffic and you go to change lanes and you check your mirrors and you start to change the lanes and all of a sudden you hear a horn honk. And you quickly correct yourself and you say, wow, I didn't see that guy. But next thing you know, the guy is pulling up next to you and he rolls down his window. He's screaming at the top of his lungs. The veins are coming out in his neck. He's giving you the sign that he thinks you're number one. And next thing, you think he's going to actually crash into you just to make his point. You know, there was a story like that on the news one time not too long ago, where the guy that got mad actually got ahead of the other car and slowed down to a stop, got out, pulled the driver through the driver's side window and beat him. So here's the question. Where did that anger come from? What is that guy's blocked goal? Think about it for a second. There are lots of, theories that we could come up with that would explain why a guy would get that mad and be that angry. But here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the guy may have been brought up by a father that had very strong disciplines. He maybe militaristic disciplines. And so when his dad got on to him, he was always wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Even when you think you're right, you're wrong. So he hears that for 18, maybe 20 years. And then he finally gets out on his own. And he thinks now, nobody's going to tell me that I'm wrong. Nobody's going to do me wrong. You don't do me wrong. And then he's in traffic, and you accidentally start to cut him off. And instantly, 20 years of anger and frustration rise to the surface. And he begins to honk his horn and scream at you. Oh, anger is a powerful thing. And if you don't understand the root of it, you'll never figure it out and you'll never conquer it. Again, the root of anger is a blocked goal. And the person or thing that blocked your goal will be the target of your anger. So it's hugely important to learn to identify the root of anger. Now, you'll hear me say this in many of these lessons, but this is a theory that works not only in your marriage. This is a theory that works in every relationship in life. This works great with my kids as I was raising my children. And they would get upset. I would know how to get down to their blocked goal. For example, my son Alex, when he was younger, he's always been a good boy. But there was a time where he kind of exercised his macho muscles and he would come across too strong to me and talk at me with an angry tone. Well, my old way of handling it would be, oh, no, you don't talk to me that way, young man. You go to your room, and I'll be in there in a few minutes to deal with this, My machoism would rise up, and I'd one-up him. No, you don't talk to me that way. My new way of handling it, if Alex came to me, talking to me out of anger, I would say, hey, wait a minute, bub. I can tell you're angry. Tell Daddy what's not going like you think it should be going. Because, somebody else is not going to understand the term blocked goal, so I broke it down that way for him. Tell me what's not going like you think it should be going. And I would get him talking to me. And then he would tell me what was really causing his anger, and I could get to the root of it. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't deal with his disrespect. We still dealt with that. But as you can see, it was a very productive way of handling the problem, and not one that just was a knee-jerk reaction to say, boy, you're in trouble for talking to me that way. It was a completely different and much more productive way of handling it. This will work for you on the job. When you have somebody that's angry at you, maybe you're on a committee and somebody down around the other side of the table, you can tell by their body language. They've got a fist, or just the look on their face, or the words that they're saying. You can tell they're upset. My old way of handling that would have probably been, as the chair of the committee, I would have just outvoted the guy. So who cares if he goes back to his office mad at me? The committee won. No, that's not a good way of handling it. I learned to say, hey, John, what's not going like you think it should? What's got you upset about this? And as he would begin to explain it, I would be able to address it and probably do it in a way that actually won his vote. So this theory works in every area of life. Again, learn to identify the root of anger. I want to give you another example that illustrates this concept. A wife goes out to her mailbox and she opens it, and in it there is a cancellation notice from the electric company. So she comes inside and she yells at her husband, I'm sick and tired of never being able to pay our bills. So the husband yells back, well, why do you always put it on me? You pay the bills, and all you ever do is nag, nag, nag. And then she says, no, I don't. Yes, you do. No, I don't. Yes, you do. And then she yells at him, well, all you ever do is lay around and watch TV. Why don't you get a better paying job? So, we've got two angry people here. Would you agree? Definitely. Well, let's see if we can identify the root of their anger. The wife, let's go with her first. She's just a mean old woman looking for a fight, right? No, probably not. Women have a built-in need for security. It's just inbred in them. If you remember in the first week's lesson, we talked about the way that God made us. We started out as one whole flesh. God takes woman from man and makes us two distinct halves and made us distinctly different. Well, one of the distincts different about a female is the need for security. It's a good instinct in her because it makes sure that she takes care of herself and her babies. So security is very important to women. So when she goes and she gets this cancellation notice of the power, that means that the lights are going to go out. And let's say that they have an electric stove. The stove is not going to work. So guess what that means? That means she can't heat the baby's bottles. That means she can't cook the food for them that they need. So she begins to connect the dots quickly. And this is a huge problem. And it goes against, it blocks her goal for security. So again, her blocked goal would be her need for security. Now let's take a look at the husband. He's just a bully looking to take somebody's head off, right? No, she may see him that way, but truth is, he's actually a good guy that's just gotten very angry. So men have a need, it's a built-in need for affirmation. I can relate to this clearly because I'm a man, and I know how important it is to me to feel like I'm doing a good job as the provider for my home. You know, I'm working one full-time job and two part-time jobs, which was the case years ago for me. And I felt like I was working like crazy. And we were still coming up short paying our bills. but I felt like I was doing everything I possibly could to be a good provider. And then if Evie said something like this to me, it emasculated me. It made me feel like less of a man. I was not going to take care of my wife and my kids. So it's a huge need for affirmation, and the statements that the wife is making here blocks that goal in that man's life for that affirmation. So here's a fact that you should write down for sure. Surface arguments rarely address the true root of anger. Remember in my first example, the argument that we had over here, you don't talk to me that way, well, you don't come in pushing me around. That's a surface level argument. In this case, the surface level argument were things like, I'm sick and tired of never being able to pay our bills. Well, why do you put it on me? You always pay the bills. Okay, those are the surface level aspects of the argument. And again, surface arguments rarely address the true root of anger. Listen, that fact is huge, and you've got to be able to comprehend that. So, until you identify the root of anger, you will never properly address it. Isn't that something? Just stop and think for a minute. How many surface level arguments have we had that the devil kept us stirred up here in this spinning surface level argument that we never really addressed the true root of the anger? I bet there have been many, many. And they've probably been over silly little things, which, by the way, after years of counseling couples, I can tell you that the majority of the arguments that happen in marriages are over silly little things. They're never something really big, you know. The couples don't come in and say, well, I found out my husband's been out at night robbing banks. We don't get problems like that. We get silly little problems like, you know, we were heading out and we had to stop by Home Depot and he said, you know, it's going to take 10 minutes to get there. And I said, no way, it's going to take a good 20. And then, no, it's not, it takes 10. No, it takes 20 for sure. And then they end up in this crazy argument over how long it takes to get to Home Depot. The majority, the great majority of arguments over something small. So until you identify the root of anger, you will never properly address it. So here's your exercise for this first principle. Whenever you, your spouse, or your children, or anybody else for that matter, are angry, stop and ask them or yourself what is going on or what is going the way that I don't think it should. Now, I would have to take a time out sometimes when I got angry to figure out what this is, what the answer to that question was, because I wouldn't even know myself. Why am I? I know I'm angry, but I don't even know why. So even if it takes taking 5, 10, 15 minutes to just go in another room and sit and think about it, get to that answer as quick as you can. And if it's your spouse or someone else, coach them through the process. Again, say, I can see you're clearly angry. What is not going the way that you think it should? Talk to me about it. So, stop and ask yourself or the other person, what is not going the way that you think it should? Now, this is a principle of truth, and it works every single time. So, learn to get to the root of anger. All right, now that you know how to get to the root of anger, the next step is learning how to resolve conflict. And that leads us to this statement. And this, again, is something that you want to write down. To resolve conflicts, you must use feelings words and eliminate absolutes. Let me repeat that again so you can write it down. To resolve conflicts, you must use feelings words and eliminate absolutes. Now, that sounds like a simple statement to make. But it's one of those things that's easy to say, but very, very hard to do. I can tell you personally, I had a problem even with the whole feelings things because I viewed that as kind of like a girl thing. You know, girls talk about their feelings. Men talk about logical things, you know. So I would say, I don't need to tell you how I feel about this. I'm going to tell you what I know about this. This is the way it is. Instead of saying, this is how I feel. Felt like it was kind of mushy. But it took a lot of practice, and I got to the point where I could do it. Absolutes we're going to get to later, but that was another tough one for me, to rid my vocabulary of absolutes. It was a huge challenge. Okay, so let's go back to the argument between our lovely sweethearts and see if we can identify the absolutes in their disagreement. The wife says, I'm sick and tired of never being able to pay our bills. What is the absolute there? Never. Yeah. I'm sick and tired of never being able to pay our bills. Okay, is that true? Do they never pay their bills? Is that the case all the time? No, it's probably not. The truth is they probably pay a lot of their bills, but for whatever reason, the electric bill kept getting put off, and then they get a cancellation notice. So it's not a truthful statement. And you see, that's the thing about absolutes that makes them so easy to argue, is because they're not true. So as soon as you throw out an absolute at somebody, instantly their guard goes up and they're ready to defend themselves and fight. Let's look at the way the husband responds and look for the absolute. Well, why do you always put it on me? You pay the bills and all you ever do is nag, nag, nag. Well, the first one is always. Why do you always put it on me? Do you think she always puts it on him? Probably not. She probably tries to figure it out sometimes. And then he says, all you ever do is nag, nag, nag. All and ever. So is that true? Is that all this woman does every waking hour of the day, is nag her husband? No, it's not true. So of course she's going to instantly defend that. No, I don't. Yes, you do. I do not. Well, then she yells back at him, well, all you ever do is lay around and watch TV. What are the absolutes there? All and ever. Again, it comes out of our mouth so quick, but they're so problematic because they're not true. So you think it's the case that all this guy does is lay around and watch television? No, he probably does yard work. He probably works, like I said, I did, maybe a full-time job and 2 part-time jobs. So when he hears a statement like that, of course he's going to take offense to it and say, that's not true. That's not all I do. And again, he's frustrated because he feels like he works hard. But she's saying, all you ever do is lay around and watch TV. So remember this. This is worth writing down. Absolutes can be argued forever and never resolved. Absolutes can be argued forever and never resolved. So let me give you a metaphor, a visual image of what absolutes do. Let's say that you're running. Maybe you're even running a race. And you have this bag on your back with these little logs, little round logs. And as you're running, you reach back and you grab one of the logs and you throw it out in your path in front of you. And then you trip over it. And you say, who in the world would do that? Anybody who uses absolutes in their communication with their spouse or anybody else. That's the image you should have. Every time I reach back and throw one of those absolutes out, I'm going to trip over it. So you wonder why your arguments are going, your disagreements are going south so fast. You're sabotaging your own success at resolving the issue by throwing out absolutes. You reach back and throw out an absolute, and within seconds you trip over it yourself. So, absolutes can be argued forever and never resolved. You would do well to rid your vocabulary of absolutes. And by the way, we're talking about negative absolutes. I don't think anybody minds positive absolutes. A statement like, wow, you always look so beautiful. Nobody minds that one. We're talking about negative absolutes. Well, if I can't use absolutes, what can I use? Feelings words. Feelings words. And how do you do that? Well, let's revisit the argument between our lovely sweethearts once again. The wife goes to the mailbox, gets the cancellation notice. She freaks out on her husband, which makes him very angry. And the husband identifies the root of his anger, the block goal, and realizes what has got him so upset. And he says to her, honey, listen, when you say things like that, it makes me feel like you don't trust me to take care of you and the kids. Now, I should tell you at this point that this argument that I have used, this example, is not a hypothetical example. This is Evie and I 17 years ago. This is an actual argument that we had. So I can feel the same feelings I had back then. And it made me furious. And my old way was to throw out sarcasm and absolutes, and it would turn into a surface level argument that would last for days and maybe even weeks. And then I learned this theory, this way, this technique of handling my anger. And I was able to stop myself before I responded, which is a challenge in and of itself. But I would stop myself and say, all right, I definitely know I'm angry. I feel my blood pressure rising, hair standing up on the back of my neck. I am definitely angry. What is blocking my goal? What is my blocked goal? And I said to her, when you say things like that, it makes me feel like you don't trust me to take care of you and the kids. And she responded, oh, darling, listen, I do trust you to take care of us, but every time one of these notices come in, I feel scared. Which then helped me understand that her block goal was her need for security. So we went on to affirm each other's feelings, and guess what happened? As we talked this thing out in a healthy way and got down to the real root of the problem, the root of the blocked goal, we were able to address it and talk it through, and guess what we discovered? It wasn't that I was a bully and she was a mean old nag. No, that was not the conclusion. The conclusion is that we were both very good people trying very hard, but we had no control over our finances. And when we handled this the proper way and got to the real root of the problem, guess what we did? We reached out and found a Christian financial program and went through it. And from that, we learned how to budget and handle our money properly. And when we begin to do that, guess what? The cancellation notices went away. They went away. So when you get to the real root of the problem, all of those surface level things go away. If you don't get to the root of the anger and argue just the surface level details of the argument, you will argue them forever. And they'll never be resolved. Proverbs 15:1 says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. And absolutes in a disagreement are grievous words. Listen, this principle, this theory is huge. And I hope that you'll learn it and apply it, because you absolutely can conquer anger if you remember and apply these principles.